it's your happiness that matters most of all, yeah. But if he ever breaks your heart, if the teardrops ever stop, I'll be there before the next teardrop falls. Though it hurts to let you go, darling, I want you to know I'll run to you if ever you should call. And if I should ever hear that he's made you shed a tear, I'll be there before the next teardrop falls. I'll be there every time you need me, by your side to drive away every teardrop that you've cried. And if he ever leaves you blue, just remember I love you, and I'll be there before the next teardrop falls. I'll be there anytime you need me, by your side to drive away every teardrop that you've cried. And if he ever leaves you blue, just remember I love you, and I'll be there before the next teardrop falls. And I'll be there before the next teardrop falls.
Oh, kia ora, kia ora, kia ora. Thank you for tuning in today. That's a beautiful waiata from TJ and Huri, and it's one of my papa's favourite waiata. I mean, he's got a few, but that one reminds me of him. So I thought I'd share it with you. Hope your day is going well. We've got a overcast sort of a day, and the sun's out, and then it hides behind the clouds, and then it comes out. We had good wind here for washing as well. But anyway, I'll crack on. Just a quick update in regards to our kura and our schools. I've had parents message me, and I just want to acknowledge all the parents that have made contact with me. Thank you very much, because giving me the heads up means that I can give you the heads up as well. So they're saying that in those schools that were locked down, that their children cannot use their cell phone in their classrooms. Like, they can't text each other, with their mates, or they can't ring out. So another red flag, whānau. So there's obviously a blocking system going on, and is that so that our children can't contact our parents? I mean, we have a right to know what's behind this whole agenda. and that why is the government trying to block access to our own children? Major concerns. What's going on? We have a right to ask the politicians in charge what's going on. If they're not going to tell us, we get rid of them. If the police aren't going to do, it's just the whole blasé attitude that really concerns me. Like neighbours of living next to schools weren't informed that there was a bomb scare. I mean, some schools evacuated, and some schools kept the children there, and some schools even put them in the hall. For goodness sake! So there are a number of red flags for me. But hang on a minute. Oh, my husband's home. Oh, kia ora. Anyway, I'm gonna mute and then do another share another video. Kia ora.
Should function, where corporations should not be beholden to their shareholders. They have a responsibility to their stakeholders, not just the people who literally hold shares in the corporation, but people who are affected by their business, people who live in the area that the business operates, people corporation does. And so that broadens the corporate responsibility of these corporations. And that was one of the key driving themes of Schwab in the European Management Forum / World Economic Forum from its inception. But move ahead to 2014. And there's this fascinating piece from NPR, of all places, that again, it's an open conspiracy. There's nothing hidden about it, but you can go and read their piece from 2014. World's richest people meet news on how to spread the wealth. And it's literally illustrated. This article is illustrated with a photo of Lynn Forrester de Rothschild, Prince Charles, and Christine Lagarde, then of the IMF, at this conference that they were holding back in 2014 on inclusive capitalism. So they held this conference in London, and there were about 250 people at this event. And these 250 people represented $30 trillion in investable capital, which was estimated that at that time as roughly 1/3 of the total investable wealth in the world. We're meeting in this one room in 2014 to talk about this concept of inclusive capitalism. And so you ask, okay, well, they're giving these speeches about, what our responsibility is as people with this overwhelming wealth and blah, 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 right? So what does that mean, though? Like, what does that actually mean, inclusive capitalism? And even this article goes on to admit the phrase inclusive capitalism is deliberately broad. People talked about it as valuing long-term investment over short-term profits. Some mentioned environmental stewardship. Others focused on treating workers well. Christine Lagarde, who runs the International Monetary Fund, said it is a way to rebuild trust in the financial system. And ultimately, of course, again, it means whatever they want it to mean. It sounds good, though. Inclusive capitalism, you couldn't get more buzzwordy than that. But that's, I think, the framework in which we start to see this headlong rush into the creation of an ESG metric that somehow assigns a number, a score for you on this scale. How much are you in the club of this inclusive capitalism, or whatever we're calling it this week? How much can we trust that you're on board with our agenda? And so all of the power really lies in whoever's writing the metric itself. But do you think every single investor in every single company that's going to be looking at investing assets, especially for these big institutional investors, are going to be looking at that ESG score and thinking about how was that score calculated and what went into that? And, but why did he rank them that way? No, they're just going to be looking at a number, and it's going to tell them, okay, green light or no, red light, and very little else. And so the real question then is the creation of universal ESG accounting standards that essentially the whole world will adopt. Again, no binding treaty or anything. It's just, oh, everyone's doing this, so I guess we'll do it now. And this was specifically talked about in the Harvard Business Review just last month. We need universal ESG accounting standards, where they note that there are this incredible universe of acronyms that are working on this question right now. The CDSB, the Climate Disclosure Standards Board, the GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative, the IIRC, the International Integrated Reporting Council, the SASB, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. And apparently the one that seems to be the front runner right now for the one that could develop some sort of truly global ESG rating is the ISSB, the International Sustainability Standards Board. And I haven't done the deep dive on any, let alone every one of these organizations yet. And so budding researchers in the crowd, knock, knock, wake up. Here's a very, very good place to start some of your research. But you can go into, for example, the CFA Institute, which is the board or the group that certifies the CFA chartered accountant CFA rating, are working on global ESG disclosure standards for investment products. Oh, guess who else is working on on an ESG standard? The WEF, the World Economic Forum. Their IBC, International Business Council, has created a Measuring Stakeholder Capitalism WEF IBC Common Metrics document, which furthers their Measuring Stakeholder Capitalism document from September 2020, which is trying to form this sort of overall picture, not just ESG, but incorporating ESG as well as corporations' adherence to the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and again, coming up with numbers. So you can see something of a war developing between different bodies that want to control the standard so that they can say, if you do this, you get a good mark. If you do this, you get a bad mark. And they get to certify the people who do this type of metric reporting. At any rate, let's go back to George Carlin. It's the big club and you ain't in it. And right. That's what this is about. They are going to set some sort of global standards for corporate behavior. And the creepiest aspect of this that I've seen in recent weeks that really solidified in my mind, oh, this is exactly what this is about, was this long interview in Politico with Fiona Hill talking about Russia and Ukraine and what's happening there. And towards the very end, they were talking about the response to this needs to be bigger than NATO. Bigger than NATO? Well, not militarily bigger than NATO, but in terms of Corporations have a responsibility to not be dealing with Russia right now. And so the interviewer was saying, well, how do you do that? I mean, some companies might decide not to. And she brought it back to ESG. This has to be part of ESG. We have to downgrade people who are going to be working with rogue regimes like Russia or something along those lines. Again, this entire global standard is evolving completely out of the realm of any sort of governmental situation. And this is not something that's going to be gaveled down by law, but it's just going to be the standard that the 250 people or so that control 1/3 of the world's investable assets are going to decide, okay, we'll use this. And now we get to literally dictate what way the world goes. A prime example of that, the 2021 shareholder letter from Larry Fink of BlackRock was all about ESG and how this is the way forward and we have to be on board with this and blah, blah, blah. Of course, BlackRock, one of the handful of institutional investors that controls however many billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, I can't remember what it is, 10 trillion or whatever it is, in and of itself. Yeah. These are the places at which the rubber meets the road in terms of the formation of this overall system. So I think of it as a corporate social credit system that, again, can be used as a model for what will ultimately be imposed on citizens somewhere down the road.
Yeah, I think the way Klaus Schwab had described it is he said it was to go after the investors, right? And so you would be able to, if they are doing business with the wrong corporation, the bad corporations, the bad investment strategies, then you would cut off their ability to get loans. So his idea was the investors have the carrot that makes the corporations act. And so you hear this kind of trope going around right now, go woke, get woke, go broke. And I'm like, no, that's not the way it's happening. I'm so convinced that was a psyop planted into public discourse that I'm like, no, as soon as I hear get woke, go broke, I'm like, you got to watch what this company's doing because they're just distracting you now.
Yeah, because again, that's based on the old thinking of shareholder capitalism, where the shareholders would actually be concerned about the bottom line profit of a corporation. But that's not what this is about. Right. The people who are investing in these multinational corporations are not necessarily concerned about the bottom line. They already control 1/3 of the investable assets on the planet Earth. They want to use that power to direct those corporations along a certain path.
Yes, and they're using a term. I think I heard Trudeau use it the first time I ever heard it during the Freedom Convoy. It's reputational risk. McDonald's pulled out of Russia because of a reputational risk. And you're starting to hear this a lot. And it's like, oh, I see where this is going. I see what you people are doing. If the investors lead the corporations have the carrot that lead the public, right? Because because they are the ones who are experts at propaganda.
Yes. And unfortunately, the public has already demonstrated in spades over the course of the past century, let alone the past decades, that, yeah, I'm sure they can complain and they might not like it, but they will go along as the corporations start to change, because doing otherwise would require genuine work, and you would have to, I don't know, shop at your local mom and pop store and buy off-brand stuff. And no, I want to go to Walmart and buy whatever, Nike and whatever else it is. And that is the road towards corporate serfdom, essentially.
Kia ora, kia ora, kia ora. Oh, thank you, hon. I'll just get rid of this. So really interesting corridor on ESG, and I actually did a live last year, I think, on the very same kaupapa, and trying to inform and educate ourselves. We need to do our own research. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to listen to these guys. You need to listen to your own puku, your own gut, and go and do your own research. I'm not saying one way or another. All I'm doing is putting out information so that you can, it's like the more information you have, the more you can make up your mind, right? And if you don't think that that system is around, well, think again. I don't know if any of you have heard of it's the Vida credit scores. So if you have requested credit in the past, you will have a Vida credit score, which is very similar to the ECG, but just in relation to our credit. So you get a score, I think it's between 1 and 500. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've requested. So you can go in and request your credit score. Now, when you go in and get a bank loan, or when you go in and put something on hire purchase, corporations can go in and request your Vida credit score, and it'll identify everything. Whether you haven't made payments on previous accounts, whether you've defaulted, it is mind-blowing what comes up on your Vida credit score. Even the fact that you've gone in and looked for credit, like when we bought our car some years ago, we went to another number of financial companies. We paid cash for half of it. It was 32,000. So we paid for half, and then we wanted to put the rest on credit. And so we went to a number of financial institutes to get the best deal. Now, all of that searching came up on our Vida credit score. Even searching for credit can actually make your credit score dive. Missing a payment can make your credit score dive. Defaulting on a payment will mean that they don't touch you. And you've got the statute of limitations, which is up to 6 years. That sits on your record, whānau, for 6 years before it naturally drops off. So if you think that's not going to come your way, well, think again, because we're already under that type of social credit scoring system anyway. Okay, I'm going to, and I don't know why when I mute, sometimes videos will, that's why I ask if you can hear. Sometimes videos will play and sometimes they won't. And I have no idea why sometimes they play and sometimes they don't. In other words, why you get sound and why you don't get sound. So that's why I'm going to play, I haven't played him for a while, one of my favorite commentators along with Neil Oliver, and is Russell Brand. So this is going to be a little bit of a, well, yes, long, no long, because that one was 12 minutes, that video I just played. And Russell Brand's one's about 14 minutes. But I just wanted to talk to you about who Vida is, right? So Vida was established in New Zealand as Baynet in 1971. Vida was a data analytical company and the leading provider of credit information and analysis in Australia and New Zealand. In February 2016, Vida was acquired by Equifax, a global leading provider of insights and knowledge that helps its customer make informed decisions. Now, their customers are businesses. We're not their customer. We're their data. So that's who Vida are. You can actually go on to the Equifax website. I think it costs about $30 to get your Vida report. And it's actually quite good that if you've got a copy and you're going to go and get credit and you already, you can suss out by your Vida scorecard whether or not they're going to say yes or no. Okay. I mean, that's playing into the system, but it's letting you know that when they talk about the ECG, that video I just played, we're already in that system, and it's just a kia tūpato. It's saying, so what they were talking about is when they have meetings, they meet amongst themselves. So what did I write? So these corporations, these major corporations want to control the standards, so the standard that's created. So there's a bit of a war going on with control, right? And even amongst themselves. And so it's really important in who creates the global standards, who leads in that space. And I'm not talking about us, and I'm not talking about businesses. This is a way, so capitalism, is there such a word now? Is there such a meaning as capitalism when these bastards, because that's what they are, can go after businesses and say, because of your credit or your scoring, your ECG scoring, we're not going to do business with you, and you're not going to get a loan, and you're not going to do this, the same way that they control us through our credit ratings. So there's a war going on as to who's going to create these standards. Now, here's the thing. They can only bring that through a sovereign state, right? And they can only implement that into our laws. I'm making you aware of this because that's the only way that they can bring this in. And then if your country agrees to some type of treaty, so that's the red flag, and that's the understanding. And I know there's a lot to take in, and there's a big world out there, and there's so much going on. Do not be overwhelmed. Do not be fearful. Just know that this is another tool in your kite to be able to move forward, okay? And I don't care what people call me. I don't care if they call me conspiracy theorist or whatever. I don't give an F. Seriously, I don't. Why? Because this is about my mukupuna's future. And if you care about your children or your mukupuna's future, you're going to be cautious about artificial intelligence, about the technology that they're going to use. And someone sent me a disturbing video last night. Seriously, I didn't go to sleep till 6 o'clock this morning because I was pretty much exhausted. It had my brain ticking over. Even for someone like me, it was out the gate. Seriously, out the gate. I'm not going to report on it. I'm not going to discuss it because I don't know if it's tickle or puno. And I won't, but things like this, I'm quite happy to let you make up your own mind. With this other stuff, it's so huge, but it sits along the same pattern. It's about the global elites wanting to control the masses, right? The global, and all I can say is think about the Hunger Games. That's all I'm saying. Think about the Hunger Games and the potential that these people are willing to go to control the masses. And like I say, the video I saw last night was quite disturbing, and I don't get too disturbed. I don't get too freaked out. And if it can freak me out a little bit, there's something quite serious going on in the back rooms. What I just shared here is quite soft in comparison, and yet for some of you that would be quite hard hitting, right? For me, it's quite soft. It's been around for a little while. There are signs everywhere. We just got to take our blinkers off, whānau, and so we can be aware of what's coming down the tunnel. In regards to our schools, the question that I have in regards to the school bomb scares is some schools evacuated, which I believe is the absolute right thing to do. There's a bomb scare in your school or a bomb scare anywhere, you get the fuck out of there, right? Here's the thing. Some of these schools put the children in harm's way. And if I'm your parents, and like our parents have been making contact with me saying, look, we couldn't do it live, and now our children can't message each other, they can't get messages out to us. You have a right to go to your board, to go to your principal and say, what the fuck is going on in my school? Your children are not state wards. They are your responsibility. And as far as I'm concerned, that's crossing the line. So anyway, that's just, again, my perspective. Up to you what you take from it. I'm now going to share Russell Brand. I'm going to mute myself. So please, again, let me know if you can't hear, and then I'll have to unmute it, and you'll just have to hear it through the speakers. So I'll mute myself, and then I'll share, and then we'll share his video, and we'll have a kōrero.
official. The US mainstream media censors more than Soviet Russia. Who said that? You're not going to believe it. Hello there, you 5.7 million awakening wonders. Thank you for being with me on this voyage towards truth, on this voyage towards awakening. On my own, what am I? Nothing. What are we together, though? Immeasurably powerful. Our collective energy, our collective consciousness, our collective intention is the only thing that can save the world, certainly change the world. Let's not be overly ambitious on day one. Together, I believe we're moving towards it in new, empowered communities. There's 5.7 million of us now. Subscribe to the channel if you don't subscribe yet. Turn on the notification bell so we can ride past that algorithm towards glory. It's so vital that you see the videos we make every single day. And it's integrally important that you join our community beyond this channel. I'll tell you how to sign up to the mailing list. There's a link in the description. I'll give you an easy link in the corner at the end of this fantastic video with Noam Chomsky. I couldn't believe it when I got to meet Professor Chomsky, one of the most influential academics of the last 50, 100 years. You tell me. He surprised me with a lot of things he said, most notably that the US mainstream media censors more and puts out more disinformation and stifles debate more than even in Soviet Russia. I tried to remember whether or not he said Stalinist Russia. Watch the video and you tell me yourself. He said that you can't talk about the war in Ukraine without censorship. If you're a regular watcher of our channel and our content, you'll know that if we put people up that present an alternative view, that stuff gets shot down. Why is that? Why are people afraid of having an honest and open conversation? When people say disinformation, I think what they mean is shut up. We only want one perspective. Well, do you know what? I believe you're capable of taking on more than one point of view. I believe that you are capable of understanding a wide set of facts, a broad scope of data, and forming your own opinion. We're not children. We're not idiots. They're trying to infantilize and disempower us. They've been doing it for too long. For a long while, you've known something's wrong, and we're here to show you how you were right and what we can do about it. Stay to the very end of this video with Professor Chomsky so we can tell you more about how to join our community and how we can start to mobilize this movement so it goes beyond just the spread of truth and into the instantiation of new systems, which can only obviously be achieved with massive consensus and new alliances, which I believe, because I believe in you, we can form. Let me know in the comments what you think about this video. Give us a thumbs up and spread it around like some crazy new virus. Stay to the end.
At the beginning of your career as an activist rather than as an academic, anarchism and freedom of speech were two issues about which you were vocal and explicit. Do you still feel that decentralization and anarchism are important subjects to be explored within this arena that you say that we are currently lacking? And do you feel that there is a future in some of these ideas that sometimes feel like they belong to a previous century, specifically anarchism?
I think they belong to a future century. These are long-term goals that should guide us in what we do every day, but can only be approximately realized. And we can make advances towards them. But without freedom of speech, we have no hope of dealing with any of the problems that concern us. We can see this very clearly today, very dramatically. Take the United States today. It is living under a kind of totalitarian culture which has never existed in my lifetime and is much worse in many ways than the Soviet Union before Gorbachev. Go back to the 1970s, people in Soviet Russia could access BBC, Voice of America, German television, if they wanted to find out the news. If today in the United States, you want to find out what Prime Minister Lavrov of Russia is saying, can't do it. It's barred. Americans are not permitted to hear what Russians are saying. Can't get Russian television, can't access Russian sources. That means also that fine American journalists like Chris Hedges, one of the best, is cut out, barred from Americans because he happens to have a program running on RT, Russian television. You want to find out what the adversary is saying, which is of utmost importance. You can maybe tune into Indian state television and find it out, or you can read it on Al Jazeera. But the United States has imposed constraints on freedom of access to information, which are astonishing, and which in fact go beyond what was the case in post-Stalin Soviet Russia. That's just a remarkable fact. It goes well beyond anyone who dares to break the party line on the dominant issue of today, Ukraine, is simply demonized, vilified, can't be sent to the gulag. It's a free country still, but you can barely talk. And that has very dangerous implications for the current situation and beyond. All of this is very serious. As far as anarchism is concerned, that should be a guiding principle. We should constantly be searching for illegitimate authority, challenging its illegitimacy, trying to overcome it. It's basically the core principle of traditional living anarchism. So that should be a guideline in anything we do. However, we should recognize that to deal with the current existential problems like climate destruction and nuclear war, we are going to have to work within the framework of existing institutions. That's obvious just from consideration of timescales. We can modify them, we can try to improve them, but they cannot be overthrown in any reasonable timescale. That's true, even though we must recognize that unconstrained free market capitalism is a recipe for suicide. Actually, business has understood this for hundreds of years. That's why they never permit the business world, which is overwhelmingly powerful, never permits capitalism, always insists on massive state intervention to defend private power from the ravages of the market. The talk about free market capitalism is propaganda. We will take what the last 40 years, which according to rhetoric are the triumph of free market capitalism, Thatcher, Reagan. In fact, it's what economists have called a bailout economy. Resort to market forces has led to catastrophe after catastrophe. The state has to step in to rescue the perpetrators. I can go through the details, but it's overwhelming.
When economics becomes the de facto epicenter of our ideologies, do you see that as somehow co-committant to our separation from the ecological disaster that you're describing? When our ideologies, when our cultures, when our society is built around ecology, around economics, do you see that as being part of the problem that has disconnected us from nature? How do you suppose that people have become so disconnected from nature, both inner and outer? And also, Professor, when you describe censorship to the degree that you just have, that you're saying we're living within a kind of almost unprecedented level of tyranny, certainly within the post-industrial age, how, when you have centralized power to the degree that you do, when you have censorship to the degree that you do, when you have anti-protest laws being continually introduced, and you have this 700-second ticking clock, how can we possibly intervene? And also, might I ask, when censorship is as extreme as you are describing, when the dissenting voices appear to be coming from the right, when Donald Trump is the only person advocating for de-escalation in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, where do young people, or just people broadly, start to direct their optimism? Around which principles do we start to organize, particularly when even when you, a revered thinker and philosopher and icon such as yourself, say that we should restrict ourselves to reform? Where do we find the kind of spirit? Where does the spirit come from? Because sometimes the fear somehow isn't enough, because the fear somehow leads to a kind of despair and a kind of nihilism. And from somewhere, I feel that we have to engage something that it seems to me, has long been lost, certainly since the 60s, particularly since the 80s. From where are we to find this kind of libido, this kind of love, this kind of new eros for our planet and each other in this technocratic wasteland? Where, Professor? Where? I'm imagining all of this being written down in the corner of your screen.
I see plenty of it. I mean, I was very active in the 60s, in the aftermath. Fact of the matter is, there's more young people engaged in serious political activism today than there were in the 60s. There was a small period, the late 60s, 68, 71, short period in which there was plenty of activism. There wasn't much before. It settled down afterwards, but moved in different directions. Instead of Woodstock, what you had is deep, extensive engagement in problems of the day. Take the feminist movement, mostly developed in the 70s, not in the 60s. There were seeds set in the 60s, but then the actual developments went on. Environmental movement barely existed in the 60s. Earth Day was a breakthrough. Then it took off with direct activism. Opposition to aggression grew extensively in the 70s, in the 80s. In fact, our doctrinal system, of course, suppresses activist achievements, doesn't want people to know about them. But the 1980s were an extreme breakthrough in history in opposition to aggression. The US was fighting, Reagan was fighting brutal terrorist wars in Central America. For the first time in history, people in the aggressor society, us, went to live with the victims, didn't just protest. Thousands of people from all over, all sectors, young people, evangelical churches, all sorts, went to live with the victims, to try to help them, to protect them, even to offer whatever protection a white face gave. That never happened in history.
Well, there you go. That's Noam Chomsky, champion of the left, hero of old, great professor, Father Christmas of anarchism, talking about new ways of organizing society, new ways of collectivizing. And when I say collectivize, I mean that organizations should be run by the people that work in them or inhabit them. Communities should be controlled by you. No one should be telling you how to run your life. No one should be telling you what you're allowed to say and what you're allowed to do. Of course, there's got to be a consensus around kindness and letting people be who they are. That's obvious to all of us, isn't it? Let me know in the comments if it's not obvious to you. We can keep this conversation going. I believe in you. I believe in the possibility for change and hope. I believe that if we are active, if we collaborate, if we come together, there's nothing we can't achieve. Let me know in the comments below who else you'd like to see on this channel. Give us a thumbs up. Share this video broadly and widely, because let me tell you, while you sleep, the opposition are working hard. The propaganda machine never naps, let me tell you, baby. Give this video a thumbs up. Give it a like. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these two. They're yet more informative, if anything. I hope they are. That one I really like. And sign up to the mailing list right now so I can tell you about the live events we do, both online and in physical reality, so we can come together and do stuff together. More important than any of that, though, is that you please stay free.
Kia ora. So two really good brain-teasing videos for you to contemplate. But I like what Russell Brand said at the end, that communities should run their own communities, that we shouldn't be dictated by any hidden shadow or hidden governments or hidden unelected officials or te me, which we have been seeing a lot of. Okay, whānau, I'm going to tune out now. Thank you to Tina. I'll read your comments after I sign out, but thank you to Tina, Roimata, Hana, and Sasha, Jillian, Marion, Taku Hua. Thank you to all of you. Tina, Mary, Roimata, Rachel, Lee, Massine. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. Lee, you fellas are awesome. Thank you so much, Sharon, Lance, Michelle, Rachel, Chris, Liz, Pam, Jackie. Awesome whānau. Stacey, Tisha, Carmel, Barb, Renee, Susan, Tigger, James, Frederick, Jacqueline. Awesome. So hopefully I got most of your names, but anyway, I'll go through and I'll read your comments. Kia pai tō rā, till I do another live. Have an awesome day. Ka kite anō. Kia ora.